What is going on, folks? It is Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Thank you to Mark Spusta for the lovely shirt. Thank you to Luke Chu for the Ghost Bear heads and the desk candy. And, of course, thank you to my tiny co-host. Where is he? He's so tiny, tiny Steiner right over there. But most importantly, thank you so much to this week's guest, artist, illustrator, designer, and so much more, Sadie May. Sadie, welcome to Secondhand Talent.
Hey, how's it going? I'm glad to be here.
It's so great to have you on the show. And if the lighting seems a little weird in the room, we are actually filming this one in the morning, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We do that too. So we're a little discombobulated. We're getting it all together. It's going to be great. And we are going to start this interview out the way that we do with every other one. When I first reached out to you, Sadie, and let you know that I had a podcast called Secondhand Talent, was the first image that conjured up in your mind, just like when you heard the term?
Well, I feel like, over the years, obviously I'm only going to relate to my experience with it, but over the years, when people have asked me, what do I do? What is it that I do? And, when I think about it and when I put it together, I feel like I'm not I'm not the famous one, but I work for real famous people. Sometimes, and so to me, it's I like a pretty quiet life. So I feel like, there's tiers of that, and there's the talent, and then there's secondhand talent. You know what I mean? There's talent that's just below the surface, that's making everything on that top layer move, because you got to have, I don't know. So I guess that's kind of is the layer that I feel like I'm in, where I'm working with some really visionary, inspirational people. And although I'm sure my work probably is that to some people, to me, I'm just living my life and drawing pictures, so.
But isn't that the best way to be, though, to have that feeling as you're going through it, even as you continue to work with, like you mentioned, these big influential artists in the scene. Isn't it much better to kind of be like, you know what, I'm in the right place, I'm doing my thing?
Right. I don't know. I don't personally. I see, the scrutiny that people on the wide lens get. We talked about Billy Strings a little bit. He posts a picture, and 2 minutes later, there's 2,000 people liking it, and people commenting, and people asking about it, and it's the pressure to just. Because, I don't know, from the way I see it, he probably just feels like a dude that writes music and plays music, and he's doing his thing, and so that.
Yeah.
What?
No, I was just going to say, I want to say something about Mr. Apostle real quick. So I don't really know much about Billy Strings. I have been kind of on the side watching his fan base grow exponentially. I mean, we're talking, I would argue that his fan base is larger than Goose's.
Yeah, he's a bluegrass musician selling out arena shows, which is
unprecedented, really.
It's I'd say it's unprecedented.
As a solo act, a tour maybe.
Sure.
But
right.
Let's say you put together Willie Nelson and Allman Brothers, you put together a horde style tour.
Yeah,
of
the Outlaw
bluegrass.
Fest.
Outlaw Fest, exactly.
Right.
But for a single band to be bluegrass of all that, ones that do that do tin can mic songs, to be selling out arenas, that, with that comes a level of pressure. And I remember talking to Susanna Millman, the photographer of the Grateful Dead. She said something that I'll never forget hearing. Season 3, episode 23 or something like that, or 20, one of those later episodes. But she said she firmly believed that, paraphrasing here, but that if Jerry could only play in dingy bars and blues cafes for the rest of his life, he'd still be with us. And it was the burden of the machine that was the Grateful Dead, not the band, but the fact that
unprecedented music monster that was created. Yeah.
but also
it was an
being
ecosystem
responsible
too.
for that was it. Being
Hmm.
responsible for so many people's livelihoods and kind of having this feeling, well, if I don't go on tour, these people won't eat.
Right. Yeah, well, so I was raised by two deadheads. My mom and my dad were on tour here and there. You know, they'd like jump on for a couple shows here, a couple shows there, you know. And I was born in 94. So Jerry was one when I died, and I saw Jerry six times when I was a baby, you know. So like that's the type of my mom was going to Grateful Dead shows pregnant with me with my sister in tow, you know. And so like, you know, that collective consciousness, that ecosystem, that was something I was always tapped into. You know, we have a little music festival out near where I'm from, central New York area, and there's a festival, Sterling Stage, and that was, you know, friends of my parents that put that on, and they would have, you know, they would have all sorts of, you know, musicians come through, but it was still a very small festival. So this ecosystem was something I've always been kind of comfortable with, but not reliant on. Like my parents weren't the type of people who lived on tour for their livelihood. They would like take a break, go out and see some shows, come home and take care of business. You know what I mean? Um, and so I feel like that approach is something that has always seemed natural to me. And like, no disrespect for the people who put that time in on tour, because I know it's grueling, you know. But yeah, then the musician is, you know, kind of holds that in the balance. And you know, when you look at Billy Strings, you know, he just had a kid. I have a almost 2 year old son, you know, and I can only imagine that like probably one of the things he wants to do is sit around and watch his kid figure out how to do all the things that kids figure out how to do, you know. And like doing that sober and California sober, and I think I'm not obsessive personally, so I like keep up with him, and like it's a very I'm definitely a part of that community, so I'm not always up to date on the news with him, but I thought I saw somebody saying that he was taking a break from weed too. So it's like to have that platform to go about it sober or sober-ish, California sober or whatever, you know, and
I
to
think California sober is sober personally. I mean,
yeah, me too. I've seen enough people, you
we
know,
could get
you
into that
figure out
another time, but yeah,
sure, and yeah, once you're ingratiated in the culture, you know, you see people drop like flies because they don't know how to get to that point.
or
And
because they
I
don't
can
know
only
what they're
imagine,
getting now.
r- you literally cannot tell. You literally don't know. I mean, I was one of the first people at my campsites to buy this like big ass test kit. I'd be Everybody would know to bring their shit to me and test for me because even if I wasn't doing it, I was like, listen, I'm not gonna stop you from doing your shit. And then when fentanyl started popping up, I'm like, guys, fucking everything. Yep, it is a shame. And I feel like, you know, when we look at this microcosm, macrocosm of the pressure put on one single individual person, because, like, I mean, Billy Strings as a band is a music experience I think everybody should have, especially if you like jam bands at all, even if you're not a big bluegrass person, if you like rock, if you like metal, I think that everybody should go see Billy at some point because I think it is, you know, relatively life changing. That's my opinion. But to have that all of that pressure teetered on one person, you know, I don't want to be that. I'd rather be the secondhand talent. I'd rather be the person underneath that nobody's worried about what I post. When I post something, if I get 50 people looking at it, it's like, oh, cool, you know, unless it's a piece of my work and sometimes my art, you know, that's what people are around for generally when the, you know.
You know, I'm not. I can't say in good faith that I am a fan of the music only because I haven't heard enough of it.
Hmm.
It's just not. It's interesting with bluegrass in a lot of different ways. You know, one of the bands that you've worked with, Kitchen Dwellers, I absolutely love. Love their album Wise River. Love a lot of their music. There's some stuff that Billy's done that I've heard that I think is absolutely magnificent. And I think he's one of the most talented guitar players in our
Right.
generation. And I think he's got a wonderful voice for the genre. I mean, he's put together an incredible band at the same time. And as someone who also, the more I hear about him, the more I want to go see a show. I know I miss the days of seeing him at a venue
Sure.
like for a reasonable amount,
It
but
doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't matter.
that being said, I also really, really, really hope he does take that break
Hmm.
because he's earned
Yes.
it and he deserves it. And we've seen what's happened to the artists we love who didn't take that self-care, who didn't take that time off and the toll that it took.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that no matter what, you get to a season in your life where you got to slow down, and that happened with me a couple of years ago. And, I've always been pretty go, go, go. I've done all of the things. I lived in a van, I lived in a school bus, I did all
Was it
the
down by the river? Sorry.
occasionally, yes.
Okay.
It was, a van down by the river. But, I love running water. I love, heat. I love not having, a roof that is possibly leaking because it's a vehicle.
Ironically, one of my favorite things in the world. So we share that in common. So that's
Yeah.
amazing. A non-leaking roof is
It's
like
clutch, honestly. So,
10 out of 10.
and I decided, a while ago that I was ready to just slow down and like obviously that can, converged with me meeting my partner now and us deciding to start a family, but also just like taking more time to like focus on my craft, really make the connections, like deepen connections that I had with people in the industry that I desperately wanted to be in. Cause like I was saying before, that economy, that Grateful Dead lot economy, I started drawing posters with paper that I got, computer paper and watercolors and Sharpies. Really started doing it when I was like 14 or 15 and going to these, like going on lot, going on further lot and like having like Kinko's copies of, a ballpoint pen drawing of, some skeletons, and like I have always wanted to draw people and interact with people who understand the live music experience through visual art. Like that has always been my goal. Like from a very young age. Um, and like it's definitely one of those out there things that I contemplate, but just that this is, what I do and what my purpose is, what my focus is in my career and in my art is to connect people somehow, whether it's advertising or merchandise, to these live music experiences. And like to me, being at a live music experience, it doesn't matter if it's Billy or if it's Fish or if it's, whatever, if it's a polka concert, great. If it's church, great. If it, wherever it is where you're having this collective experience with the people around you, where you're not verbally communicating, you're not touching the person next to you down the row, across the room, but you're sharing an experience with the majority of the people there in a way that is more connective than anything else we do, period. Like, I guess sports kind of could be similar to that, but like in like movies, but really the live music experience. And I'm like, the only way I know how to connect to this is by drawing pretty pictures. And
You know,
that's,
and
you know,
before we get into that history, it's so interesting. Just the other day, I was interviewing my friend Ben Wright from Hen House Prowlers, and talking or thinking about this idea of like this universal connectivity that zeitgeist that kind of permeates at concerts and music events and festivals. Ben was part of the Bluegrass Ambassadors program and has traveled all around the world, playing bluegrass, and representing American music with with bluegrass, and he's gone to Africa and all over Europe, and I mean, like, he's just been to some amazing places. And one of the things that he related was that, like, anytime he was in a place where they genuinely, like, could not communicate verbally, music was everybody understood music.
Yeah, it
And
is a
they
universal
were
language.
so, he, I think it was, and I may be paraphrasing here. I don't even know if this was in the episode or if he said this off camera, but he, like, at one point, like they were trying to talk to each other, and then, like, the guy played something, and he was like, "Oh, a G chord, yeah, all right, let's fucking go, like, here we go." Like, that's all I
Man,
needed. That's all I
spectacular.
needed. Yeah, like, it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what language I speak. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
that we don't share that. It doesn't matter that you're from this part of the world and I'm from that part of the world. This brings us together, and it's really
So,
amazing that you're aware of that from that young age. Growing up in the
well,
scene, it
and
makes
like
sense.
now, not to get too crazy deep into politics because that's not what we're here to talk about, but just like specifically, let's think about a bluegrass show. I can think of two genres of people that are generally making up the mass audience of a bluegrass show, and they're probably split down the middle somehow, some way. Go to a Tyler Childers show, split down the middle, split some way that people are voting one way or voting another. And, you're probably not going to get into that in a show. You're both enjoying the music and hearing the message and feeling, that connection with people that right now it feels like it's almost impossible to connect with some people, because of the turmoil.
I I fully agree with that statement. And you're absolutely right. There's some people where it just seems like so out of reach just because of factors outside of our control. But yeah, feeling that uniformity at the show and just being like, no matter what, we may have particular views, particular beliefs about X, Y, or Z, but we're all here for the same reason. We're all
Right. And
here. Yeah.
checking that at the door in a way, because I think it's important. I think political conversations are important. I think that politics are important. I have my opinions, and I'm free, I have no problem sharing my opinions on what I know about. But also, I think that I feel like it's a little bit like parenting where, I love my son to death. He is one of the most important things in my life. And sometimes I need to get up and put him in the care of others and check it at the door for a little bit and go, clear my mind and clear my space and having like a space where I can be and exist, separate from that. And I feel like concerts, that like universal consciousness at a concert and like tapping into everything around you can take you out of, the hard shit that we have to do every day. And we do have to do it, but,
I,
that
I
little
love
escape.
I love metaphors, and it kind of the imagery going through my head is just like, mama bear leaving the cub to go take a lap from the stream, and the stream
Hmm.
in this case being music. It's just having the perspicacity to and self-awareness to know when you need those times to be like, hey, I need a, you know have a few hours where I can just let go and tap into this zeitgeist of music, you know and that's an incredible place to be at, because that makes a better you, and a
Right.
better you makes a better child,
Everything.
family, everything. Right?
Art.
Everything is art. Everything is better. Now let's. We've been talking so much about the present, and it's so clear to me. I mean, seeing the Grateful Dead in the womb is definitely not something that I can boast of, as much of a Deadhead as my mother was, and is. When did you first get into drawing? When did you first get into the actual design aspect of it?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where I was never told when to stop drawing. You know, when you're a kid and everyone brings out, art supplies and says, "Oh, it looks so good," and they put it on the fridge. And I just never had anyone that was like, shouldn't you be focused on this? Shouldn't you be focused on that? It was always just support. And, I went through some phases in junior high and high school where I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to focus that artistic, side of me. And I thought about animation. I love animation, and then when I started to about 11th grade, I started to, well, I went to 11 11 11 further at Syracuse at the On Center, and uh, took some acid and went in and had an
Allegedly.
experience. Allegedly, somebody did, maybe sometime, and had one of those kind of life-changing experiences where I was seeing that ecosystem from a different perspective. Because like when I would go to like Philly Folk Fest or Gray Fox with my dad when we were younger, he'd give us $100 bill and say, "You can buy whatever little weird, bean bag animals from the incense shop booth, that you want, and snacks and whatever." But when I saw that and I was like, "Oh, like people are selling posters, people are selling shirts, people are really, connecting in this way." So I feel like, when I was just before getting out of high school, I started focusing the art on, music art.
And mm, you know, for me, my concert that of that caliber was just 2 years before yours.
Oh yeah.
Just about 2.5 years before yours. I managed to catch the May, I believe it was May 4th and 5th, 2009, the Dead, when they toured as the Dead with Warren Haynes and Jeff Chimenti and Bruce Hornsby. Maybe not with Bruce, but it was with Bobby, Phil, Billy, and Mickey.
Yep. Yep.
And I got to the venue. It was at the Allstate and or Rosemont Horizon, and I I got off the train and I got to the venue and I was like, what in the fuck is this? Like,
Yeah.
holy, like, and I had never been, like, I had been to a couple of concerts up till that point. But music was just not that big of a deal to me until I was like
In it.
15-ish. And then I was too young to go to the shows that I wanted to go to. I couldn't like get in. But the Dead, all ages, baby. And
Oh yeah.
at that point, it was I was old enough, but it was my first time ever seeing any member of the Dead live. And I walked in. It was a Friday, and somebody came up to me randomly. Oh no! I saw somebody wearing a kippah, and I went up to him and I said Shabbat Shalom, because it was Friday night, and he said
Hmm.
Shabbat Shalom, and he gave me a piece of chocolate. I was like, enjoy the show. And I was like, thanks. Had no idea
Well.
and I bought the ticket
The
and
ride.
allegedly took the ride and woke up during Come Together. From was Drum Space Come Together in set 2, and I was just like, this is where I belong.
So what's
Oh
funny,
wow.
the funny thing about that is that night that I was talking about 11 11 11, which is also a full moon, which also like they were playing at 11 11 on 11 11 11, which I was just like, you know, um, but the moment that I realized that at live music like that you can have a collective conscious experience was during she's so heavy because this is the On Center in Syracuse, so it's, a small arena. And they go, she's so, and I watched the whole crowd go up, heavy, and everyone at the same time just waited and fell at the same time. And I don't think I was moving. I think I was just staring at an arena full of lights and people and music. And I was just like, what I like to say too is I walked in there. I didn't know how to hula hoop. I didn't have a hula hoop, but I walked out of there. I knew how to hula hoop. Like something about the movement. I don't know, but yeah,
Here's
that's a
and
it was
kind
a
of in
golden
another
era of live music for sure.
and in another light, what makes it so crazy for me personally is that I'm not a Beatles fan.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
genuinely I love what other people have done with their music and I appreciate what they have done for music. I am just not
right,
a big fan of their but
right. You'd rather hear a cover. It's
hearing
like I feel like
the arena all go over me. It's just like
well, and so, but then you see, I feel like you could go the entire show otherwise and have a really like wonderful collective experience. But because the Beatles were so big, because they were so tapped into the big and the small zeitgeist, every single person, knows the Beatles. And
this
so those people
ubiquity.
who,
Yes.
so these
Yes.
people, there was probably plenty of people there who maybe they didn't know anything about any of the music. Oh, until that comes on, and then it's, oh, I
Right.
it's
No,
the
I'm part of
Beatles.
the part. I'm part of the party now.
Yeah.
Here we go. That I know this one. Let's go. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yep. Yep.
No, that's totally true. I mean, that's it's a wonderful thing to be able to look back and like point out those moments in your journey. And it's also going back to what you were saying about drawing. It's really great that nobody ever told you to stop because I feel like that's something that often gets overlooked. Just like secondhand talent definitionally, the way I see it as when I put together the term, it's talent that is no less but often overlooked than the talent on stage.
Okay. Yeah, I love that.
Because it takes a village to put on a concert.
Yeah.
It takes about the population of Wyoming to put on Lollapalooza.
Hmm.
And every single one of those people matter. And when you are a cog in a machine, it's very easy to forget that how essential your function is to make the whole machine run. Right. So if we think of a band and the touring apparatus and that extends out to management, to art, to family, to merch, to tour management, road management, once we extend that out further, these are, we start to realize we have a whole network of people who have dedicated their lives and made careers out of ensuring that you have a good time when you show up for doors at 7:30.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that
I
yeah.
see, so, I see a lot of it. I see not always personally like the touring, aspect of that, but also like when you get into any creative directing, you have to consider, okay, when are the tours being booked? Where are they going to be booked? What do you need to have, what do you need to have where? How many of this do you need to have for what, And that's just the merchandise side. That's not even the actual boots on the ground people, the techs, everything. It is a machine.
You've worked with some rather large names, I would say. Including my favorite musician in the world, Holly Bowling. No,
Yeah, I love
no,
Holly.
no shade to anyone else. I love all of my friends who are musicians equally. But Holly is my favorite musician on the planet.
She's, So my favorite band is Green Sky Bluegrass. I feel like I probably should have said that earlier, but like
I caught the Chicago shows when she was on tour with them.
I think that I mean, I don't know. She's my favorite um combination. Like I love Green Sky, but actually my favorite band is Green Sky with Holly Bowling. Like certainly I saw them at Pier 17 in New York a few years back and just I mean, I don't know. I think that she's just the cherry on top. Um,
And she's so nice. She's
oh
such a
yeah.
good person. I've had the opportunity to meet her a few times, and she is just one of the kindest people. Um, and I remember being at a show of hers in Evanston a few years ago, and she dedicated the encore to her piano instructor who was in the crowd.
Aw.
And it was,
That's a tearjerker.
oh, oh, all of us in the room, all of us just like, there
Yeah.
was a line. There was a line, I tell you, of people lining up to thank this woman for teaching
That's
Holly how to
amazing.
play. It
Right,
was
because she wouldn't
beautiful.
be there.
That's
Yeah.
secondhand talent, though. That
Yeah.
piano teacher, and again, it's not just about the people who are on the show. It's
Hmm.
about everybody in the spaces, that they occupy. I were talking earlier. One of our mutual friends is Matt Crozier, who was on the show
Hmm.
last season, and I don't ever have anybody on the show instead of anyone else. It's just when it works out, it works out. I want to have as many people on the show as possible.
Sure.
And it's really cool down the line, season to season. One kind of pattern that started to emerge with the show is this kind of word of mouth. People are hearing of the show because their other friends were on the show.
Right.
And that's kind of bizarre for me, just personally. Like I
Sure.
have this is that I so that we're really with this interview kind of reaching a weird crest in my own artistic journey here, with this show.
Well, also
Huh.
it's the connection making. I think that if you put a lot of effort into anything that you're doing and voluntarily of your own, if it's if you have a project of any kind, like, your podcast, like my art, when you're working on it, if it's a long-term goal, you meet people and then you meet people from those people and you meet people from those people. And it's not necessarily better people, bigger people. It's just somebody else. It's a new connection. Um, when you talk, I mean, I've had people ask me how I got to where I am, and I'm like, because as things came up and as things were happening, I communicated and formed connections with people along the way. And those connections led to other connections. And those connections, and then you see this spider web of talent that you're somehow interwoven into.
Yeah, somebody, and it, I don't, and what's interesting is I don't see myself as a part of that web. Um, I created Secondhand Talent because so many of my friends are in those spaces. Matt, I mean, let's just talk about artists for a second. Matt, Jack Firestone, Mark Serlo, Ryan Kerrigan, Caleb Williamson. I'm leave Isadora Bullock. I'm leaving people out. Garrett Melby. I'm forgetting people, and Mark Spusta, of course, Luke Chu, Sean Bayous. Um, I was. It kind of shocked me that nobody was asking for the stories of those people. And I kind of see myself in this position where I was a comedian for 18 years. I am consider myself a lapsed comedian. Um, Ex- I've done one show in the or two shows in the last 5 years, and
You're just a private comedian. You're a
yeah,
private comedian
if
instead of a public
people
comedian.
exactly, I practice at home. No, if people ask me to come out and do a show, I will, but
Mhm.
I absolutely love this podcast and what this has become. And it's a great way for me to continue to produce something that I'm passionate about, that I love, that I really enjoy. Um, and to be able to, I hate using our tagline, but shine the spotlight on the people who shine the spotlights, and let the people know, hey, when you're at the show,
There's a man behind the curtain.
well,
Like,
not just that. It's that there are so many people behind the curtain doing so many different things. B, when you're at the show, say thank you. Be kind. Like
right. This is a
to
privilege. Like, being able to have those connective experiences, like that is a privilege that we all get to experience together. And it's based on the backs of hundreds to thousands of hard working individuals. Yeah.
and their stories deserve to be not
Yeah, I
just
love that.
heard and told, but their stories deserve to be asked for.
Yeah, I love that. That's in, it feels, I feel like I'm still like, I don't know. I feel like my story has so much ahead of me that I don't stop to think about what has gotten me here either. I'm not thinking about that because I'm thinking about today, I'm thinking about tomorrow, I'm thinking about 2 months from now when I have a poster, like,
I will say this: be proud of where you're at.
I appreciate that.
Do
I
do
am
your
proud of,
because do yourself that favor, because because you owe it to yourself. And I also was in that exact same place for a little while with the show, where I was so upset about what it wasn't. I'm going to put that in air quotes for all of
right,
our listeners.
the expectations.
Go on YouTube and like and subscribe so you can see the air quotes. Um, but yeah, I had these really, now that I look back on it, just like stupid, unrealistic expectations of and pinning hope that and certainty that this is what's going to cause this, and
Hmm.
not just really letting the universe move it along at the pace that
Is
at the
natural,
at
yeah.
the only pace that it can, exactly.
Right.
And
I
yeah,
it's definitely easy to overlook, like, so it, I feel like also when you start a project and you have these goals that you set, it's not always easy to make, like, you almost don't know how to make the goals when you first start because you don't know what kind of thing that you're starting to do. So like I remember I went through a split with my ex-husband a few years back, and when I was before I left him and then like into leaving him, I got a therapist. So like she's helping me make these goals. And one of my goals, I had to set a goal for my work. I had to set a goal for my work. And I said, in 3 years, I want to do a Billy Strings poster. And that's not a realistic goal because I don't get to decide that. I can't earn that. That's a creative management team that has to decide that I'm what they want when they want it. And, the 3 year mark came up on that goal, and I had still had it in my head. Once a year I'd post on Facebook and tag Billy Strings, and I'd have all my buddies from all the Billy Strings shows that I've been to, and just like, give this girl a chance. And it's like, well, he doesn't manage his creative team, he doesn't. It's not actually, he's doing other shit, he's making music, he's hanging out, he's doing whatever. But when that 3 year goal came up, and I'm just like, well, still like nothing, but I'm like, man, I have worked with Heart, I have worked with Trey Anastasio, I have worked with, bands that I could never dream of working for. I've worked with legends. I've done, I've put names on posters that when setting that 3-year Billy poster goal, I did never even consider that because I was so, focused on this one kind of weird, awkward goal. But along the way, I just was like, well, if I keep working, eventually I'll get there. And I didn't necessarily get there, but I got somewhere that if I had just gotten a Billy Strings poster, because like I mean, you could just be a person and just get hired for a job and then that could be it. That could be like, there's no organic growth to get to that point. There's not the connections that I'd make, you know, working with, creative directors like personally who, have all of these different projects going on and them being my friends that I can be like, just like, hey, how are you doing? How was your Christmas? How are the kids? Like things like that. This isn't just, you know, work for me. It's a lifestyle at this point. And if I had just gotten a Billy Strings job, who knows? That's
I
That's great.
mean,
I would still love to do a Billy Strings poster. But at the same time, I mean, this is, a quarter of the paper that I have in here. These are all
wow.
18 by 24 prints,
Wow.
stored. And so I've been doing something. I've been at it.
Clearly. And
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with setting goals for yourself. But like setting it, don't set it as a terminus. Maybe like if I don't hit this, then I'm done. Like when I saw your poster come up for this most recent tab tour, like I was blown away by that. And I think if I can find the image, I'll pop it up on the screen here.
Wait, I
But
do
it,
have it
oh, if
right
you
here.
have one handy, then that would
Oh
be even
yeah.
better. But
Yeah.
I was so impressed with that poster. It made me want to check out more of your art. And the more I dug into your art, the more I was like,
That's the gold foil. Yeah.
that's just stunning.
Thank you.
Oh, so cool. But the moment I saw it, it made me want to check out more of your art. And then the more I checked out, the more I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely like so if you're ever at a point or if you're still at a point where you're potentially like thinking like maybe it no, you are 100% doing something right and it will come. And that's the thing is just like you said, you can't predict it. There are folks who I have asked on to be on the show on a wing and a prayer, and they say yes, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah. So that Trey poster. So I had done one for Wonderland. So I had gotten the creative director's email. Um and I did one for Wonderland, which is in Lafayette, New York. And I was like, hey, like I know you like using local folks. Like, would you give me a shot? And he gave me a shot, and he loved it. It sold out my APs. Like I was happy with it, but I also when I was designing it, I think I was like either freshly postpartum or like about to have a baby. So like there's definitely some things that like not in that physical and mental mindset, is a little bit easier to design with more intention. But I did the Lafayette poster and then um my mom was over here. My mom and I are best friends. And she goes, "Hey, Trey's coming to the landmark." On my email and I shot a
yeah.
little message and I was like, it's like, oh, let me shoot in the dark and see if I can, throw one back to and it was yes and it was one sketch and it was just move, move, move and the whole time it just felt like everyone was happy with it. I was happy with the sketch, they were happy with it. We did some font editing, before we got to the very end, but like it was so smooth and it's like it's not always like that.
Well, of
Not always
course
like that.
not, but like it's great to hear that.
Yes, that and that, to me, that feels like an affirmation that like I know what I'm doing. Like, even if I have this imposter syndrome, like, because like I don't, you asked me before we got on, if I screen printed it, and I don't, like, I have played around with it, but like I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the middle of central western New York in this small town, and the closest city is Rochester to me, kind of. Rochester and Syracuse. I'm like smack dab in the middle. And
Rochester,
so
kind of. I love it.
I'm about an hour away either way, so I'm pretty isolated.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
That okay.
screen
Yeah, that.
printing,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Yeah, I'm
I
which
know where that is. That's yeah, middle of nowheresville.
I spend a lot of time in the house doing my work. I obviously I get out and about, and there's a lot of beautiful I live right on Lake Ontario. So like I spend a lot of time at the lake. But screen printing, get most people who do it are doing garments. And that's great. That's not what I'm interested in doing. I don't care about I will have somebody else print my garments forever. Posters, I would love to learn how to print my own posters. However, I've been working with triple stamp press, and I work with a few different printers, but I've been working with triple stamp press, and every single thing that they have printed for me, including that Trey poster, have been perfect, better than my digital work, and I built that connection um through Owen Murphy. He recommended them when I was working on a project, and every single thing that they have done has been just immaculate. So to me, I feel like I'm in this groove where if I have enough time to let them know to get me on a schedule, and if I can design my stuff the way that I know how to design it, like I get the print done the way I want it every time. So like
That's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah,
not a lot of people get that when they don't have their own press, and it's really really special to have a press that's as you were talking about it, it kind of in my mind it kind of conjured up Mark Spoosta's relationship with Monolith out in the Bay
hmm
Area, and how they I think the way he put it, he's like, I'm sure they're not like big fans of having all of my paper, like these massive sheets of paper that they
right,
can't bend,
sure,
like stored in there, but we've worked it out and over the years, and they do a phenomenal job. And, you know, I think that if you have something, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like if it's working out and you're getting a product that you as the artist feel is where you want it to be,
right. I'm
then
trusting the professionals, like I would love to print my own stuff. I have plans on eventually, having a space where I can put time in to learn how to print my own prints. But in the meantime, like I know how to design it, design them and get them ready for the screens. And so it's like, well, this is working right now. I've definitely had prints. I mean, the first screen prints I ever got printed, I won't say who printed them. There was two different first screen prints that I had, and one of those two first screen prints, I had just found out I was pregnant, and they used UV ink, and UV ink smells terrible. It smells not. It's to me. I'm just like I had to box them up and put them up in another room and put that box in a box, just because also as a pregnant woman I could smell them from a mile away.
right, your
And I
senses
didn't
were
know it was what it
probably
was at first either. I was just sick in bed and like, what I've never smelled a smell like that in my entire life. It is
ugh.
really highly unfortunate. And the colors were very off, and I was so scared after that print. I almost just didn't do it again because I was like, is this right? Is this ink okay? Is it spoiled? Like the colors are wrong. I got it late. Like there was so many things that went wrong with it, and I almost was like throwing in the towel. But then I was like, well, I can't do that. Haven't hit my goals yet.
There you go. I mean, well, that and the upside to having a goal for doing a Billy poster is that like there is still something to reach for. However, again, takes nothing away from the fact that you should be incredibly proud of where you're at
Right.
today in the here and now.
Yeah, and I think, where my goal, if I look at my short-term goals, they definitely lie closer to like refining my skills in, illustration, refining my colors, and um t remembering to take time to paint and create work of mine that isn't, all just digital screen printed, because I love painting. I haven't been able to paint. Um I have all my I had them all hung up downstairs, but we did some renovations, so I've got a stack of my paintings just staring at me in my studio all the time. But, those are where my goals lie at this point, where I'm like, well, I want to spend more time working on the things that are just going to improve. And it has a lot less to do with anybody else's um, autonomy in asking me, oh, will you do this project? I will find projects to do. I will find projects. I will be connected with the right people. Those projects will happen. If I work hard and continuously share what I'm doing, it'll work out. I have faith in that.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
So we've talked about just about everything, except for the business itself. When did you realize, or at what point in your artistic journey did you decide, you know what, now's the time to formalize this with paperwork?
Yeah. So when I think it was around 2017, I was living in some form of vehicle. I think I would have been living in an RV at that time, and I was doing digital designs.
Since you said some sort of vehicle?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was desperate to live in a vehicle for a while. I don't know. It's
Oh
the
my God.
freedom, you know? Um, because, well, I did a bus, I did a van, I did an RV, So living in some sort of vehicle. But I was mobile. So it matters. It matters. I was mobile.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so I had my iPad and I was doing these designs. And I started doing print to order designs, and I wanted to open my Etsy. And when you open Etsy, you have to have like tax code, and you can do it one way or another way, but basically the easiest way for me to go about it at first was just become a sole proprietor, register. I registered with my home state of New York, and then I did the sole proprietorship for which, I mean, it kind of still is a sole proprietorship even though it's an LLC, because I don't know. Because taxes are hard and weird.
Reasons.
Because
Reasons.
of tax reasons.
Reasons.
Um,
Reasons. Yeah.
but I decided so I had started selling some print to order, Billy Strings fan merchandise. This one actually is one of my oldest rockin', like classic, little metal goat. This is one of the like returns that somebody gave to me one time, and I was like, all right, I'll keep it for a comfy shirt. So I was doing that while I was living in an RV, and I just decided, that if I was going to make money off of it, I had to kind of figure out how to do it right. And I couldn't hold any stock because I was in an RV. So I was doing that, and then when COVID hit, we ran home. It was me and my ex-husband at the time, and we ran home to our home area out here in New York with the RV. And I started working. My sister owns a grooming salon, a dog grooming salon. So so I worked as a bather at her grooming salon for 2 years, and at that point, I had also been cleaning Airbnbs and cleaning people's houses, and so I was doing like at eBay reselling from like thrift stores. Like I was kind of doing whatever I could to make money, as long as I could still at the time travel, and then when traveling stopped, just be able to like not wake up to an alarm most of the time. But I worked pretty consistently, 5, 6 days a week at my sister's grooming salon, just bathing dogs. And I'd come home, I'd work on my poster commissions, I'd go to bed, and then on the weekends I would go clean my friend's Airbnb, you know, kind of just doing everything to make money. so that at the end of the day I could go home and I could work on my poster commissions, for local bands for the most part. Um, just like local festivals, local bands, doing some portraits and other, nonsense like that. And then after I split with my ex, I was like, this is what I'm doing. And if I'm not going to get serious about it, then I need to find something else to get serious about, but this is what I want. So then I decided after that to form an LLC and actually start, putting the effort in. And I had quit both of my other jobs at that point, and I was just full-time designing.
And just from there, it's been up, 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 up. And if you have any doubt, folks, you can check all the links in the description to see all of Sadie's art and the link to her shop, to her Etsy, and her social media profiles as well. Sadie May, are there any words you'd like to leave our audience with before we wind down this episode?
Um, be good to each other. I have a sticker that I made recently, and it just says, "Here, let me get it. One sec. Let me get a sticker.
She's going
I'll
to get
send
the
it to
sticker,
you."
folks. She's going to get the
It's
sticker.
fine.
She might send me one.
It's
We'll
getting
send her one
serious.
too.
Resist hate with radical love, man. We
Hey,
got to do it.
resist hate with radical love. I could
Yeah.
not think of any better words to end the episode with.
Yeah.
Folks, this is Sadie May. This is Steiner. This is Tiny Steiner. This is another episode of Secondhand Talent, and we will see you next Wednesday. And that's a podcast. There we go.